All right, picture this. You're on a ship, you've been a month out at sea. Everything looks perfect, right? The decks are spotless, the rigging's tight, but something just feels off. There's this dark, heavy mood hanging over the whole vessel. And for one guy on board, that mood feels a lot like a direct threat to his life.
So that man, that's Nathaniel Bowditch. He's the ship's supercargo, which is, kind of like the business manager for the whole trip. And he is absolutely convinced that one of the crewmen, a guy named Lupe, is watching him, stalking him. This isn't just some vague feeling of unease, It's this sharp, personal sense of danger that he feels with every single step. The big question is this real, or is it all in his head?
So after weeks of this, Nat has just had enough. He's done being afraid. One night, he decides to force the issue. He goes and stands at the ship's rail with his back to the whole deck, basically making himself a perfect target. And he just waits. And then he hears it. A little shuffle behind him. A voice, kinda smooth, says, "Señor?" It's Lupe. This is it. The moment of truth has finally arrived.
Nat spins around and, well, his worst fears seem to be coming true, because Lupe is holding out his hand, and in that hand is a knife. So this is really it. After all those weeks of looking over his shoulder, the confrontation is finally happening. You can just feel the tension crackling in the air, right? So, what's going to happen here, on this dark deck, miles from anywhere?
But then, the story just takes this complete left turn. Lupe doesn't want to fight. He wants to learn. He offers Nat a trade, a deal. He says, "I'll teach you how to throw this knife if you teach me navigation." It is so not what you'd expect, it's almost comical. And just like that, all that tension just vanishes. And in its place is this desperate, almost urgent plea for knowledge.
So why the desperation? Why does Lupe want to learn this so badly? Well, it all comes down to a woman, of course. The woman he's in love with. Her family is full of ship's officers, and there's no way they're going to let her marry a common sailor. For Lupe, learning navigation is his one and only shot at becoming an officer and being with her. Now, for Nat, who's a widower, he's already lost the love of his life. So this request, it hits different for him. It's a chance to help someone else get the happiness that he can't have.
And you can see Nat's wheels are turning here. He sees a much bigger opportunity. He tells Lupe, it's actually easier to teach a dozen men than it is to teach just one. So he agrees, but he has one condition. The entire crew has to join the lessons. This is no longer about just one man's love story. It's about leveling up the skills of the whole ship.
And Lupe, he agrees, instantly, doesn't even blink. He kind of glances down at his knife and tells Nat, yeah, getting the other guys to join, that won't be a problem. It's a little bit ominous, for sure, but hey, it works. And just like that, the first big problem of the voyage is solved. Not with a knife fight, but with a promise to share knowledge.
Okay, so, solving one problem just created a whole new one, and this one is way bigger. I mean, how on earth are you supposed to teach the super complex math of celestial navigation to a bunch of sailors who, like Lupe, can pretty much only do basic math on their fingers? This, right here, is where Nat's real challenge kicks in.
And this is where we really get to see Nat's genius shine. He doesn't even try to teach them the old, ridiculously complicated way. Nope. He invents a whole new system. He creates his own logarithmic tables, completely from scratch. You can think of these tables like the ultimate cheat sheets. They magically turn really hard multiplication and division into simple addition and subtraction. His whole goal is to make navigation so straightforward that literally anyone on that ship can do it.
Now, as you can imagine, not everybody is thrilled about this. The second mate, a guy named Townsend, is absolutely furious. He sees this as a direct threat to his authority. I mean, his thinking is, how am I supposed to keep discipline when the regular sailors know just as much as the officers? And Nat's response is just perfect. He basically tells Townsend that if he's so worried about it, he's more than welcome to join the class himself. Ouch.
And this whole thing leads to the heart of a much, much bigger problem. See, as Nat is creating these new tables, he's checking his work against the standard navigation textbook of the day, a book called Moore's Practical Navigator. And what he finds is absolutely terrifying. He finds 8,000 errors. Just let that number sink in for a second. 8,000 errors in the one book that every single sailor was trusting with their life.
For Nat, this is a total game changer. He realizes he can't just go in and fix a few errors here and there. He has to create a whole new system from the ground up. So he goes to the captain and tells him he's going to write his own book, a book that's going to be perfectly accurate, written in simple words anyone can understand, and it'll have all his new easy-peasy methods. This is such a massive, insane undertaking that the captain is just staring at him, completely floored.
Okay, let's fast forward a bit. They finally arrive in Batavia, and Nat's little school has been a wild success. The crew is basically a team of expert navigators now. But they hit a new wall. They're there to buy coffee, and guess what? There's no coffee to be had. None. The entire voyage is about to be a complete and total failure. Their only possible hope now is to sail to Manila. But when they mention this, a rival captain just laughs at them. He tells them it's impossible. See, to get to Manila at this time of year, they'd have to sail directly into the teeth of the powerful monsoon winds. And he just kind of sneers at them, saying it's a trip that just isn't done. But for Nat, this isn't some impossible wall. It's just another navigation problem to be solved. He is totally convinced they can make it to Manila, and when the first mate scoffs, saying it's going to take some seriously good navigating, Nat's reply is so simple and so confident. He just says, "So we navigate it." And what's incredible is that the captain, hearing this, actually agrees to give it a shot. Now, let's just take a moment to really appreciate how ridiculously hard this was. A normal trip to Manila, sailing with the wind, that's about a 2-week journey. The Estrella spends 8 weeks fighting that wind, zigzagging back and forth, clawing for every single mile they gain. It's just an absolutely incredible feat of skill and sheer willpower. So when they finally pull into Manila Harbor, the other captains there literally can't believe their eyes. One of them, a Captain Hudson, knows for a fact that it's impossible to sail from Batavia against the monsoon. And yet, there's the Estrella, floating right there, safe and sound in the harbor. And you can tell Captain Prince is just loving this moment. He is soaking it all in. When Captain Hudson insists they must have some kind of master navigator on board, someone who can work lunars, which is a super difficult way to figure out your longitude, Prince just grins. He says, "Oh no, every single man on my crew can do that." And to prove it, he calls over the cabin boy, who then perfectly recites the whole complex formula right there on the spot.
The other captains are just stunned. Their jaws are on the floor. Captain Hudson himself admits it out loud. This one American ship has more navigational knowledge on it than all the other ships in Manila Bay combined. And across the deck, Lupe just gives Nat this quiet little salute. They actually did it. They did the impossible.
So the Estrella sails back home to Salem as absolute legends. They're heroes. But the story isn't quite over yet. In fact, it's about to take one last dark turn. Because as soon as they drop anchor, Nat gets some news that changes absolutely everything. He finds out that a ship belonging to a friend of his has been wrecked. His friend is dead, and the only survivor is blaming the whole thing on book sailing. A mistake in Moore's Practical Navigator, yep, the exact same book Nat found those 8,000 errors in, sent them straight into disaster. And here's the specific mistake. It's almost unbelievable. The tables in the book were all calculated as if the year 1800 was a leap year, but it wasn't. So that one tiny error, one single day on a calendar, created a small inaccuracy in the navigation tables. The problem is, at sea, a small error in a book translates into a massive, deadly error in miles. The survivor's words are just killing. He said if they hadn't been trusting the book, they would have been using the old ways, log, lead, and lookout, using their eyes, their experience. But they put all their faith in that book, and it sailed them right onto the rocks. And as if that wasn't devastating enough, the news gets even more personal. Nat learns that 2 of his own brothers were also on ships that were recently lost at sea. And suddenly, everything just clicks into focus. Nat's obsession with getting everything perfect, his painstaking search for those 8,000 errors, his crazy ambition to write a perfect book, it was never just an academic exercise. It wasn't about being the smartest guy in the room. It was always about saving lives. And this terrible tragedy is the ultimate proof that when the stakes are life and death, there is simply no such thing as a small mistake. Every single detail matters because one tiny overlooked flaw can make all the difference.